what advice would you have for people now about investing? Because given everything that's happened, jobs have been lost. Everyone's trying to companies are firing people, you know what I mean, getting let go. So each dollar, each dirham, whatever, is becoming that much more like valuable, and you're gonna think another maybe 20 times before you invest, that kind of thing. So what advice would you have for people now, given, let's say, they've been affected negatively? How do you bounce back, and now how do you start looking forward?
Yeah. I think the first thing to do is start building up a bit of what I call is like a bit of an emergency fund as well.
Okay.
So if you've unfortunately been in a situation where you've lost your job or you've not been paid for X number of months, which is quite common as well, instead of just jumping into, right, so I need to invest some money, which you do, I think the first point would be build up a bit of an emergency contingency fund for yourself, just in case, so that you can cover your costs and living costs really.
Yeah.
Once you've built that, then definitely you still need to start looking at. I know it's hard when you've had a bit of a bad year and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I think if you look at overall, it will benefit you and your families if you do look at your investment plans again. And as I say, if even if it means starting small, but start again and start building, for sure. What else would I say? Now, it has been. I mean, nobody would have expected what's happened this year.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have predicted that.
It's completely thrown many people. But I think it is a matter of learning from it and just thinking about, right, so if it happened again, well, God forbid it happens again, but
I don't think we can do another one.
How would I have done things differently? And if your finances were not on point, start now. Start thinking, okay, well, now I've learned from that, let me start to build my future. And even if it means starting from scratch,
you might have, a lot of people might have to. Yeah.
In some cases I've heard, I know that all their savings have been diminished because of all of this that's happened, and it's unfortunate, but you just kind of have to pick up from there and say, okay, now let's look forward, let's be positive, and let's start again. It can be done. It can be done.
And like you said, so the two things would be, or the two main things is, start putting together some type of emergency fund. And with that, like, let's say you've lost your job, you have, bills, all that kind of stuff. So would the smart thing to do, I guess, then downsize to create, some kind of gap, kind of gap for yourself, so you have a bit, and then you start the second part of the process.
Correct. Yeah. So I think another good thing to do is really looking at your budget, your outgoings, everything really that you spend on. You really need to have that exercise where you need to sit down and go through everything. And there's always ways that you can reduce your outgoings without, if you don't sit down and look at it, you won't know. And you forget things.
Yeah, no, true. Yeah, of course.
You forget whatever you're paying for, whatever, and things just leave your bank account. It's so important to have a look at it properly again and say, well, what's that? So that's a really important exercise to do. And you're right, depending on your situation, look again at your rent, look again at your cars and things like that. Can you look at renegotiating some of these things if it will free up some more money? Mortgages, rent, whatever it is that you're doing, it can help.
Yeah.
But yeah, really looking at your outgoings, and then, obviously if your income's reduced, and you need to make sure it's balancing out.
Exactly.
And you talked about that gap. That's true. Then we need to start looking at, once you have a surplus of income, then start doing number one and then number two.
Number two.
But if you're in a situation, no, don't go straight into start trying to put money. You can't physically. So yeah, start doing the exercise in terms of looking at your outgoings and trying to work things out from there.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's really, really good advice. And so given this year, given everything that's happened, I'm guessing your clients have been going, crazy with everything that's happened. So what has been the common, I guess, issue that kind of spreads across most of them? Is it, of course, like business not doing well, given, fine, but are there other things that maybe other people are not aware of that like about businesses that we're not taking into consideration?
I'm trying to think of a common. No, so I mean, the main thing, which is probably, you know, a lot of clients and a lot of people I know have had to pivot their business, in terms of change the way they've conducted their business, from whether it's gone from face to face to online.
Yeah.
That's been a major thing. And in some cases, I've heard of people that, you know, who've had to completely change what they've been doing. So, you know, like literally they've been running their business for years, but the pandemic has just completely, you know, they've lost everything in terms of they have zero clients, because, you know, there's some industries that are, you know, luxury, for example, people just will not spend on these items or whatever unless they have to.
Of course.
So, you know, I think a lot of people they've retrained in some cases as well. They've changed their career. I've heard of so many stories. Obviously, the ones that have been forced to change because of, you know, obviously the main sort of industries were sort of travel, F&B. These industries were hit hard.
Yeah, for sure.
During this sort of whole period of time. But it seems as though slowly that there has been some movement. So, you know, that will pick up. But yeah, many businesses have changed. I've heard a lot about companies have really gone into smaller commercial premises now. They don't need the big offices.
True. Yeah.
So that's a huge, you know, that's huge in terms of the whole economy, really. So people are just opting for very small offices and allowing people to work from home, and have very small presence in actual offices. So this has changed the way we're doing business, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've heard the contrary in some countries. I know in the US there's a trend where people are moving into larger properties, as in residential properties, because they're working from home and they want bigger spaces to work from. So they've gone from small congested apartments to larger houses on the outskirts of cities, just because, you know, so there's different trends in different countries. And yeah, it's lots of things going on that's changed the way we're doing business and everything, really, the way we're living.
Yeah, exactly. Masks everywhere and like all that kind of stuff. But that's so interesting that in the States people are getting bigger places now. I would have never thought that anyone's getting bigger anything at the moment.
That's what I thought. And then I saw this, I had a conversation with someone there, and I read a report, and it was true.
Wow.
It's happening. So there you go.
That's very interesting. And on the part that you said about how businesses have had to pivot and shift to online, and like you said, a lot of them now are, you know, renting out smaller spaces because people are working from home. So do you think now, given everything that's happened, because this is what I think. So before the pandemic, especially here, particularly here, because when I was working in Amsterdam, working from home, we used to be in one of my companies, we were allowed to work home 1 day a week, and it was like a given, and it was fine, and no one said anything. But I feel over here particularly, it's a very cultural thing. Like, if you're not in the office, I don't think you're working. And everything now, it's been in COVID for eight months now, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and this has proven that you can. Okay, the world has still run on. You know, it was okay if your business was affected. I'm sure it was, but work is still being done, and people are working from home. So now, do you think moving forward there is a need for an office? I think there are benefits. I'm not saying there's no benefits to it. There are. But is there really a need now in 2020 for anyone to have an office?
Probably not.
Yes.
Probably
you
not.
agree, yes.
Yeah, but you're right. And I don't know whether it is a cultural thing in this part of the world, but I still feel that there's people that are going out and working in their office. Or you know, it's very strange, but I don't think we're going to get 100% working from home and no office. We may get smaller offices. But no, I agree with you. I don't think that really there is a need. But yeah.
Yeah. But it's all about, like, I know the argument people say is typically is like, oh, you need that human connection, you need the interaction. Listen, I'm not saying if you're all together in an office, you might be able to get things done quicker. Fair, because you can just talk to the person right there. I don't have to like Zoom you or like message you, and you might be doing, you know, God knows what you're doing. But now is like it's just proven everything. And this is the thing that bothers me, is that I still hear about like a lot of my friends, whatever, that they're back in the office because their bosses or whatever, they're like, you just need to be in the office. And it's just, there's no logic behind it. It's just, this is something that I want, and now because you're employed at this company, you have to follow. And that frustrates me a lot. It's very, very frustrating, because I'm like, there's no need. Honestly, there's no need.
Yeah. Well, I think we're not going to get, fully get out of this whole. You're right.
Yeah.
We're not.
I think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so moving forward now, given everything that's happened with like this year, do you think now need to start like thinking about how they're going to work differently? Because like you said, a lot of them have had to pivot. So now moving forward, do you think there needs to be like there might be more of an emphasis on remote workers? Might that be a bigger thing? Like you can have people like all over the world working for the company, or does the model have to change now on how we like do business, do you think?
Yeah, and I think it has changed overall. It definitely has. We've seen it here locally. Where they've made the shift in terms of allowing the visas for people to come and work from abroad here, and so that's a shift in mindset. But yeah, I mean, it does create more opportunity to be able to work anywhere around the world. This is like it's opened up the world to everyone now. Everybody knew it could be done, but nobody was really doing it.
Exactly.
So
you said it perfectly.
we all knew in the back of our mind, but this whole year has forced us to kind of get on with it and do it. And even the people who are not tech savvy have got onto the Zoom and team meetings and whatever, and they've been on it because there's no other way.
Exactly.
So circumstances have forced people to change. And I think, I believe it has changed the whole business model now for many people. And, going into 2021 as well, I would imagine a lot of businesses have changed their plans for next year based on everything. And they, whether they like it or not, they've had to put in a lot of remote working type scenarios.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's the way forward. And, to improve efficiency, you have to do it. You can't sit and think, well, we'll wait for everyone to come back in. It's not going to happen. So you have to make the most of where you are, and I think businesses have taken that on board.
Yeah.
On the whole.
Yeah. You kind of have to adapt with how everything's changing, and like you said, there probably maybe some companies and some places in the world will have fully like remote working, but I think, like you said, I think the hybrid model is what is going to be the new norm.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 days at home, maybe you're in the office twice, or whatever that might be, whatever that might look like.